Fabulous. And now we are moving over to Europe and we are moving into smart ports. So up next we have a panel, and I'm really delighted to welcome to the stage Anke Kuipers, who is our moderator and will introduce the panel in the session. So welcome, Anke. Thank you so much.
Opportunity. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would love to welcome on the stage Raymon Berkhout, the CEO of Dari BV. Jens Buysse, Research Manager, Telecommunications Expert and 5G Innovator at Citymesh. And Nick Roulier, Vice President of MECA, Regional Sales and Partner Management at SES. And Pedro Mur, Partner, Head of Mobility, Transport and Logistics at NTT DATA. So thank you so much, guys, of being here today. And today we're going to be talking about the North Sea and the sea and the oceans and how to provide connectivity there. For the ones who've never been to the Netherlands, the North Sea is connected to the Netherlands, where I'm from. And the North Sea is becoming an increasing more interesting place and a more valuable place for the Netherlands, because we build a lot of windmills in there to provide the Netherlands with energy. And there's of course the shipping routes and a lot of activity happening there. So today we talk a bit about the use cases, about the technology, how to enable that, about the business models and the complexity of that, and the complexity in general of providing connectivity at the North Sea, and the rules and regulations that come into place for that. But first, talk a little bit about the use case and what it means to be actually in a boat and how this then works. Raymon, you have all this experience of being the CEO of Dari. You build ships that are now integrating CFAR to enable autonomous shipping, and for remote operations, so the ships can sail by themselves, basically. And I like to hear a little bit more, like, how does that work? What is the experience on a ship, and what do we have to think about where the connectivity is used?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this Congress. I'm the CEO of Dari Group. We are from origin an inland shipping company. We are operating 45 barges and 2 sea barges on the North Sea. And we started investing 2 years ago on remote sailing. That means sailing from a remote operating center in Antwerp, and also now from our head office in Dordrecht. We believe the remote sailing is a solution for to sail with less crew, because the crew is getting more and more an issue to get the right crew, the correct crew on the barges and also on the sea vessels. As you mentioned, we are installing now on our new builds, we are installing the CFAR system. That the CFAR is a system that makes it possible to do remote sailing, together with the semi-autonomous sailing. It's not really autonomous sailing, but just following a line. We believe in this future, and we also believe in this future on our sea vessels. We are currently busy working on a project for building 2 seagoing vessels, and we also want to place the remote sailing system on these vessels. It is still a how you call it, a project that that needs to be invented. There are a lot of parties believe in it, but the authorities, the governments, are still saying, oh, it's a little bit anxious. We have to see the progress first before we approve it. So we're now in the approval part of this project.
And because, first of all, a bit of this technology, because what do you have to have on the boat to have autonomous shipping in the first place? Because you need connectivity, obviously, for that.
Yeah, the main thing, the biggest issue for us is the connectivity, because if you can connect all the system on board, you connect to the internet, that's no problem. You have the cameras, also no problem. You can create, with the remote operating center, you can create the same view that you have when you're in the wheelhouse. That's no problem. The biggest problem is the connectivity, because the barge or the sea vessel is on its way, always sailing and through international borders.
Okay.
So you must rely on several solutions for the connection.
Yeah, so the reliable connectivity is challenging because you need to have multiple connections, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, and that means also, I don't know, having a Starlink. Starlink.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nowadays we are using, because Starlink is not the best solution. We just discussed it earlier. That there is one guy who can push on one button and the whole system is down, so you cannot rely on that. For now, we're relying on the 4G, 5G network.
Okay.
In my opinion, we must rely in the end on satellite network because that's better. We now rely on 3 mobile networks, and that makes it a little bit, how do you say it? Not as reliable as you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because of the international borders you cross.
Yeah, because then the connectivity get lost and you have to find an alternative.
Yeah. And we work with the system of Peplink, or let's say CFAR is working with the system of Peplink. And really, it's a good solution. It works. It's perfect. But you need to rely on the system.
Yeah.
If you have no connectivity, you cannot sail, and that cannot be the solution.
That cannot be the case.
No.
So okay, and so and you use it for the shipping, the connectivity, but also what other things are used at the ship? Like because the crew is there, and because I don't think everybody knows how much connectivity nowadays is being used. Like it seems so obvious. We're also used to use our phone to call, to have a video call, to watch television or whatever. I can imagine the people on the boats, they want to do that too. But is that an option even?
In the inland waters, it's not really a big issue because you're always in the neighborhood of connectivity.
Yeah.
You're not sailing on the North Sea where there's no connectivity. For the sea barges, yes, that's an issue.
Yeah.
The satellite is still too expensive to use. That's the problem. We are not the shipping industry like a Maersk or an Evergreen with big amounts of funding. The margins are very little, so using satellite just for fun is not what we do.
No.
On our inland barges, we are now started with a Starlink because it's easy accessible and we can use it very easily. But you still see that many producers of engines, parts or whatever are using their own SIM card to have their connectivity with the engine.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So talking about so it's about also creating more affordable connectivity.
Yeah.
Citymesh, Jens, so over to you because as research director, you're working also on an initiative called Crosswaves, where you're developing a 5G corridor between the harbor of Antwerp to Rotterdam to kind of provide a more sustainable and reliable internet connection. Can you tell a little bit more, like what examples of use cases did you see that made you come up with this idea of building this?
Yeah, so just to introduce Citymesh, we are a mobile network operator situated in Belgium. And what we try to do is we are a B2B company, so we provide private networks for companies. And just to interlude a little bit, having a public network which is for the public, for the consumer market, reliability is a big issue there. What we do is we provide private networks, private 5G, 4G networks, where your spectrum is dedicated for the operations. And to answer your question, so the operations we see are actually divided in 3 big categories. We have the consumer-grade applications, like a hotel boat, hotel vessel. People want to see Netflix, people want to have calls to other people. So that's like the first part. Then the second part is the business-critical applications, where, for instance, you have a digital twin of an offshore platform, where you have windmills, they make vibrations. These huge amounts of data need to be analyzed. So what we do is we send that data to an onshore location, and then we analyze it, and then we can do predictive maintenance, for instance. So that's one of the mission-critical use cases. And then the last one is the mission-critical applications, so PPDR services. So the fire, the police department, safety, rescue, flying drones offshore, for instance, for installations, to for instance, also see whether there are ships which shouldn't be there, Chinese, Russian ships, which are doing inspections or doing surveillance. Well, you can fly a drone there, but if you can't send the data on shore, then what are you doing then?
No, it's complicated.
These are the 3 categories of...
and there's a lot of new developments, because indeed with the windmill parks, if you forgot a screw, for example, if you're a mechanic and you have to go all the way back. Yeah, this can be quite a costly situation. So there's all these new needs for kind of new use cases and
Indeed,
new requirements.
So just maybe a fun fact is when you deploy a windmill farm, they need to do a lot of surveillance of the floor. So they have huge cameras. They have huge amounts of data, and then they fire all the way back to onshore with a USB stick. They analyze the data, and if they forgot some part, they need to go all the way back, do again the surveillance, and so having a network there would be really interesting.
It's super interesting. So, and because what is the difference? Because as an operator, you also work at land, of course.
Yeah.
So what is the difference at sea, technically wise? Like, why is it so complicated there?
Well, because there's sea, so there's no fixed infrastructure to build your network. So you either need to rely on existing infrastructures to put your radios, your BBUs, your antennas. So that's the first part. If your sea floor is, let's say, 40 meters down, and you need to build an infrastructure to build your network there, well, that's huge costs, huge capex, huge opex. So that's already quite difficult. And then also the operational costs, because there's wind, there's rain, there's sea salt coming there. So operating that network is also a huge investment you need to take care of.
Yeah. So what kind of technology are you currently looking into, or how do you see this from your perspective for the Crosswaves projects?
So there are two big things technology-wise which we are investigating. So the physical part, withstanding the wind and the sea, that's for our vendors. But what for us is really important is that it is a sustainable business model. So if we install all these antennas and BBUs and a core, and we only have 5 or 6 people or institutions taking that connectivity, well, nobody's going to pay for that, right? So what we're looking at is a kind of a neutral host concept. And does everybody know what neutral hosting means? Can you raise your hand if you know it? So that's maybe not a lot.
No.
So maybe I'll explain a little bit. So what mobile network operators do is they share their infrastructure. So you have a very easy way of sharing the infrastructure, just sharing the electricity, sharing the mechanical parts, but then you can go further. So you can try to share the RAN, the radio access network, sharing parts of your BBU, having a scheduler which is able to schedule the physical resource blocks depending on some kind of algorithm. And then the last part is where you actually have the core of your network is also being shared. So you have this kind of different levels of sharing. That's what neutral hosting is all about. And if we as an MNO can work with other MNOs internationally, but also nationally, and we can spare the cost reduction by the capex and the opex by having a neutral host solution, then the business becomes real and becomes tangible. We can sell something where the other operators can also work with.
Yeah, super interesting. So more the ecosystem approach in order to realize the connectivity there. Very interesting. And of course, satellite is actually the next theme, because we also have this opportunity now of using that. Nick Roulier, as Vice President of Sales for Global Telecoms, that says you have extensive experience in all the maritime satellite communications, and you have played key roles in expanding and the maritime sector, but also the largest cruise ships in the world, to provide them with connectivity. Also the latest developments in satellites. So how do you look at this kind of ideas of creating connectivity at the North Sea and starting, for example, with this initiative of Crosswaves? How do you see your role as a satellites company in there?
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, I should say.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of an imposter because I'm actually from Dubai, not from the Netherlands here, but I'm obviously British. So SES, just a quick intro. I'm sure a lot of you heard of SES. We are a 40-year-old business. We were founded in 1985, based in Luxembourg. And the space industry, as we've all seen, has just gone through a meteoric expansion in the last 7 years, really. And in the last 3 years, it's increasing exponentially again. Why is that? And the two examples are just two very good examples of what's happening in the marketplace at the moment. Satellite, as we all know, I mean, I was the first to get my Sky TV and watch sports, but satellite, as we know, has progressed and is now a major part of most mission-critical ecosystems. But one satellite system alone, whether it's SES, whether it's Starlink, whether it's OneWeb, Amazon Kuiper, one satellite system alone isn't enough. Again, you've heard reasons this morning already that we rely on connectivity. And what happens when that connectivity drops? We stop. And industry today just cannot afford that. We've become reliant on digital practice. We've become reliant on end-to-end infrastructure. And I'll keep talking while Anke here keeps coughing for a bit, but we'll keep going. I'll keep talking, you carry on. Do you want some water?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, just wanted to make sure everything was all right. So SES, cruise ship, just doing some research for this panel. SES, we connect over 20,000 vessels today. It's just one example of our business. And looking at the Google Finder that shows you where these vessels sail, a lot of them traverse the North Sea. And the challenge we all know with the North Sea is that you've got a number of different countries bordering it. We all talk to each other, but regulation doesn't allow us to roam and connect unless you're 12 nautical miles offshore, and then it's a bit of the Wild West. Now, if you're building a corridor, then that's fine, because you're building a private 5G instance over a corridor. But what happens if you want to take advantage of a bit of free ocean space and put an automated fish farm in the middle of nowhere? How do you connect that? How do you run that? So that's where satellite comes in. It acts as backup when fiber fails, which it does, but it also acts to be able to connect new areas of the ocean that perhaps haven't been thought of before with new technologies, like aquaculture.
Okay, I think I'm okay again.
Okay.
So, but one of the challenges with a satellite is to make it also affordable.
Yeah.
So how do you see that, and how do you see
Well,
that?
I have to dot my hat to Elon Musk here, because he has disrupted the satellite industry, and launch cost, which is one of the biggest expenditures for satellites, is more than halved. What does that mean? That means that it's now affordable. We're actually, if you look at as the capacity rises, as technology and innovation goes north, both forward and return path, and we may get onto why that's important if we have time. But if we look at the price of connectivity, you're not nailing up hard circuits anymore. By the time we hit 2030, I would expect there to be on-demand, AI-driven instances where you have a ubiquitous network. Your primary is still going to be fiber, because that's safe, that's reliable generally, but you are going to need satellite and microwave and other non-terrestrial means of making sure that you are covering the market that you're meant to cover.
Yeah, so basically kind of the opportunity that is there now is kind of working as an ecosystem as well, like to make use of everything that is available. Do I understand that's correct?
Yeah, although you mentioned an example, I've yet to see anyone connect a fiber to a ship, but
Yeah.
but we do connect. It is fiber from the sky, as we call it, and it is about building an ecosystem where you have a fiber layer, you've got private 5G, and then you've got backhaul via satellite and other mediums as well. Again, it's not so much the connectivity that counts. That might sound a bit controversial, but really it's about the application and making sure that the applications that are running on our networks, that are driving our ships, those are the applications that count, and they have to stay on. And that means making sure that we've got multiple mediums allowing that to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
I also think that 6G will play a role in that. So the convergence of all these technologies and having a kind of a protocol stack which allows us to merge and move between these networks, that's what 6G should be all about, in my opinion, though.
Yeah.
No, very much so.
Absolutely.
And then having the standards that we both can find to that allow us to do that seamlessly.
Yeah.
And that needs some work, as we know. Yeah.
That's why research is there.
Yeah.
We have one more speaker to also
yes,
include
sorry.
in the conversation. So Pedro Mur, you work for NTT DATA, operational in 50 countries and a trusted global innovator in business and technology services. You help clients innovate, optimize, and transfer and streamline data exchange by creating seamless information pathways. And you have extensive experience also here in Spain. You have done a lot of projects.
Yeah.
So based on your experience, what are the other use cases that haven't been shared that should be added to this conversation?
Okay. Well, before I start, thank you very much for a pleasure to be with all of you here. And a short words about NTT DATA, because I think that nobody knows NTT DATA is the top 5 IT company in the world. We are in more than 50 countries, and we have more than 200,000 workers around the world. So we cover services from consulting, IT application and implementations, application maintenance, and then also we cover infrastructure services, 5G connectivity, and data centers. We provide data center services to our clients. So I think we are one of the unknown big providers in the world, and well, Japanese origin the company, but here in Spain we have more than 30,000 workers, so we have a good presence here in Spain. Well, about your question, as a leader of travel, transport, and logistics in NTT DATA, ports is included in our vertical of transportation, and we are working with our clients mainly in inland use case. In Algeciras, Valencia, and Barcelona port, we're implementing solutions about how to make operations smarter and also how to implement digital twins using connectivity. There are a lot of challenges in port areas. Only, for example, to control the access of vehicles every day, thousands of vehicles enter every day in a port area, and you have to do this with security because it's a critical infrastructure for the government. And for this, using 5G connectivity is a key. And in this case, we provide also solutions very close to the sea. And this is where we have the challenge to incorporate connectivity over the sea. That is the next steps, I think. Another proof of concept that we have delivered in Malaga port is a proof of concept for surveillance. It's over the sea using connectivity in drones. And the idea is with Gen AI and 5G to get information from the shipping that are coming, but also the boats, just to check for vandalism or boats that are not allowed to enter in the port. So we are getting connectivity close to the port, but I think we have a challenge still to get connectivity over the sea.
Building the smarter ports, basically, yeah. So building the smarter ports,
Yeah.
the whole idea of there is not enough space, and if you want to have more automated ports, you have to think smarter. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. With technology, we can make operations more efficient, and also we can help to make the planning of the different tasks in a more efficient way that will revert in using less space and to have more operations. Even to control the containers and to manage all the things that have to be done inside the port, technology is key to let do more things in the same space. So, and we are talking about connectivity, but there are 2 or 3 new technologies that are key in the ports area. One of them, IoT, Gen AI also, and intelligent agents. For me, intelligent agents is the technology of the future for ports, because you can get information from different technologies, different stakeholders, and with this information you can compose additional value for the ecosystem. So we still need the connectivity over the sea, because the ships are coming to the port, and we have to look in the other way. We have to see from the sea to the port what happens. And there are a lot of information that is coming in the ship that is not still managed until the port arrives the ship arrives to the port. And this is something very interesting. There are a lot of
So I
documents.
think summarize because we talk about going from port to port, and also this importance from going outside of the port to the from port to satellite.
Yeah.
So it's all connected with each other, and the relevance is very clear. So when we talk about how to create this connectivity, because it's not only stopping with the North Sea. If a ship goes from the North Sea to, for example, the Atlantic, how do you see that from your experience? What steps are needed to build there?
Connectivity, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, we don't have full connectivity inside the port areas yet, and so as soon as we don't have online also full connectivity, we deliver a project, this called Data Ports. I told later about this project, but only 10% of terminals in Europe still have connectivity, so we have a lot of room to grow in this topic. And for me, the essential steps that we have to take for increase the connectivity between North Sea and Atlantic are the technological integration. We need to implement new solutions across shipping and the operations. We need a regulatory framework, and this is key for me. We have to harmonize maritime regulations. This is something that in every country we have different regulations, and that's an obstacle to make the operations more efficient. I think you know what I'm talking. The regulation has to be simple and understandable for all the ecosystem. This is key, and I think European Commission has to do something in this topic, because I like this sentence. America innovates, Asia manufactures and produces, and Europe regulates. That's a reality. We are always producing new regulations, and these are, at the end of the day, are obstacles to make operations more efficient. And also, we need international collaboration between all the countries that are very close to the North Sea and beyond to the Atlantic. I think that fostering collaboration among governments, among port authorities, shipping companies, and the rest of the stakeholders is key to have this collaboration to do the things that they have to be done. Yeah. And you cannot do these things without funding and investment. I think you have to encourage the public-private investments. It's not about the governments only, it's not about the private companies. I think we have to find some tools that let to make this kind of investment between public and private companies. And for sure, leverage the funding from European Union.
Yeah, well, Jens, you also have experience with that because you work both in Belgium and the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. How are you looking at this topic around the rules and regulations, and how do you view that, or what are the challenges that you have come across?
They're terrible. All rules and regulations from an infrastructure perspective are terrible. It really withstands the innovation. But of course, these regulations are in place for other reasons than apart from what I'm saying. I think there are two big things which need to be accounted for. First is the investment itself. Mm-hmm. So indeed the public-private investment is quite important, where you have maybe the European Commission providing money in order to start up the project, let's say. For instance, the Crossways project could be one. What everybody's seeing. Cool. So I think that's the first one. It should be a catalyst for making that infrastructure. And then secondly, I think also from a holistic European perspective regarding spectrum regulations, there should be some kind of glue making all these international laws fit together. And I think that will be a good starting point from a European perspective in any case.
Yeah, absolutely. And it says, because the satellites, they are everywhere. So how is that impacting or affecting your business?
So
have you already overcome that, or how do you have to deal with that?
We obviously spend a lot of time working with individual countries' regulation. Data sovereignty law is there to both protect us and help us in many ways. But I wish I had the nerve to wear the socks like that, because then I might be a bit anti-regulation. But there you go. But from an organisation that supports good regulation, we try and work. We've got teams of people that work with countries to say, look, how can we get better collaboration? In Dubai, the ITU met last year. They're meeting again in a couple of years, and that's to look at spectrum, which is going to be a major discussion point, particularly over the coming years as spectrum decreases. as we're seeing usage of it increase, I should say, rather. But I want to draw on perhaps something that was said about investment. Something that, again, doing research for this, that just got me thinking. The North Sea produces allegedly 1.26 million barrels of oil a day. That's a lot. Crude at the moment is $70 a barrel. McKinsey published a report last year that showed and shared that oil production could be reduced, or the savings could be reduced, or the cost per barrel, I should say, could be reduced by between 20 and 25% per barrel through the implementation of digital practice where there isn't connectivity. That's a significant saving. So if we want to raise funds and we want to get government's attention, here's an example where perhaps 1% off the top of that could be a wonderful fund somehow, if we could make that, if we could realize that across the constituent countries that combine and extract energy from the North Sea. Imagine what that fund could do to put back into the environment to help fund green, which is really what it should be doing. Imagine that.
Interesting thoughts.
So I think we just need to think a bit, work a bit. Let's not be tied by regulation. Let's wear loud socks, and let's go and be different.
It's happy socks.
Happy socks.
But again, for regulations, maybe there's a third pillar, and that's maybe regulations for the applications themselves. I mean, autonomous seafaring, autonomous shipping inland, they're all bound of regulations and national regulations, whether it's possible or not. And actually, the applications are the drivers. Flying a drone BVLOS in Europe, try to do it. From an economics perspective, doesn't really work. There are so many regulations in place which hold people from doing that. And if you can be more flexible regarding that, and that the people on my right-hand side are able to deploy the application, that would also be a big driver, in my opinion.
At the end, they have the same issues. They all need the connectivity. That's the only thing we only need is connectivity that we can rely on, and we have several connections that we can rely on, not just one, several. That's for us. The most important, and it must be affordable. That's the only thing we need.
And simple, I guess, as well, because right now, if you want to have all this connectivity at a ship, you need to have all sorts of, radars and, receivers and so on. It's not just simply putting a SIM card into your device,
nope.
right?
No. It's getting more difficult. Normally, a barge, and speaking of an inland ship, you have 4G router on it, and it works perfectly for Office and a little bit Netflix. It works perfectly, but for this part, no. You have a big technology standing on the mast, used for connectivity. Yeah.
So simpler, more sustainable, more affordable, so
reliable.
More reliable.
Yeah.
So all these different elements have been coming to order. So what would be the first step now to kind of make this happen? Where should we start? You want to maybe share that something?
Well, I think we have to work from different layers. We have to get the data. For me, it's a topic about data. We have to get the data, and we have to have sensor for all the different stakeholders, and to have a common database. Then we have to recognize the ownership of the data and to make this in a secure way. Then on top of it, we have to decide which data has to be shared between all the stakeholders, and on top of this, we have to see how we can get value for the ecosystem with new use case generations. So this is something very conceptual, but I think that's the future of the ports. We have to use the data. The data comes from the connectivity, but also from IoT, and also from Gen AI, and also from intelligent antennas. And with this data, we have to provide value for all the stakeholders. The company that provides more data to the new ecosystem will be the one that makes more influence and the one that will have more power. This is a change of paradigm, because now we think that the one that have the data have the power, but I think the future will be the opposite way.
So it's creating the ecosystem and finding a new way on how to generate business together, actually. Yeah? So it's not going to be a one-dimensional situation anymore. Do you see it the same way, Nick?
Yeah.
Or how do you look at that?
We're very pleased to partner with NTT DATA. other partners as well in the North Sea. Tampnet, we do a lot of work with Tampnet that you'd know. You know, fabulous people, fabulous partners, and it's about building an ecosystem that doesn't just stop at the connectivity layer. It's got to look beyond that. Really interested to hear about the autonomous ship use case and how and I'd love to, after this, have a chat with you about that, because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
But back to 5G, you know, 5G is a technology that should be pervasive, and it should be available on land, it should be available at sea as well. And I think satellite has a major part to play in that. You know, how do we extend the corridor? How do we make it beyond the corridor? How do we bring things, you know, vessels into that corridor so they have a seamless experience, whether they're in the corridor or not? You know, that should be our ambition.
Yeah, I think it's also a start to create this corridor, because to create this reliable internet connection, you need to work with multiple partners. So not only satellite, but also the fiber opportunities. So yeah, can you rely on that, Jens? Do you see it as well? Is that the first step, or how will be how from the corridor to the whole North Sea?
So I don't understand the question. So what's the first step to get connectivity around the North Sea?
Yes. Yeah, let's do that one first.
I don't know. I was yeah.
No, because I think it's also about the ecosystem, and connecting that also with the satellite and providing this reliable connectivity.
Because I think we could have two discussions. Either we are partners or we are competitors.
True.
And so I think I always want to break it open. I see it as a kind of a hybrid approach. Actually, I'm just repeating what you mentioned. Where, for instance, satellite connectivity could be used for instance, for backhauling instead of the fiber place. Also for the parts where economically it doesn't really make sense to put a private network. Then again, switching over to a satellite connectivity will really make sense.
Yeah.
If you want to have very high intensive, high bandwidth, low latency applications around the wind farm, for instance, a dedicated private network really makes sense there, because it needs to go fast, there's high bandwidth, and the cost of deploying it will make sense. If you go out of that zone and just need stable connectivity for really, let's say, low bandwidth applications, then again the satellite comes into play, in my opinion. And that kind of hybrid balance is a way to go forward.
And technologies exist now that allow that to happen.
Yeah.
It's still a bit clunky, but we're getting there as an industry.
Software-defined networking is the way we're doing it now, indeed.
But excited about whether it's competition or co-opetition, I think they call it, or something like that. I think making sure that it is a seamless experience for users. I mean, that should be our goal, really.
Yeah.
Anywhere around the North Sea, as you would rightfully point out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what you basically would be looking for. That's how you want to, as an end user, you want to have something simple, reliable, and the rest is all the technology.
I'm not interested in their business case from their own company. I just want their product.
Exactly.
And their product combined.
Yeah.
Should be a kind of solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want your applications to work.
Yeah.
And how it works, it's like, you also don't know how all the food is being produced that you eat.
No.
It's kind of, the connectivity itself is becoming, on the Maslow scale, it's becoming so important. We're becoming so reliant on it for so many levels.
And I also think that a kind of a European constellation there is quite important.
Yeah.
Everybody's now talking about Elon Musk's solution, but if Elon says it's done, and then you're there. So I'm a big, how to say it, activist for European and non-American, non-Russian, non-Chinese constellation. So that's why I think it's really important to also invest in that.
So that's a perfect plug. So the European Commission has funded its next generation multi-orbit network called RS², and the consortia is led by SES. It includes Hispasat, Eutelsat, other satellite operators as well. And that's going to deliver terabytes of data, affordable data, as a byproduct to that European sovereign network as well.
Yeah.
So Europe is doing that, which I'm really pleased to say as well. And the applications that they can drive from that, the business usage off the back of that asset, is going to be significant.
You want to add something to that,
In
Pedro?
2020, we delivered a project in a consortium with the European funds between Valencia Port and Thessalonica Port, and it was a 5 million project with a consortium of 13 companies, universities, center research, IT companies like NTT DATA, and these two ports. We deliver a proof of concept which they share data and they make operations between both ports more efficient. So we did it in 2020 without Gen AI, without intelligent agents, without connectivity. Can you imagine today with all the technologies what we can do? So I think that this is an opportunity for Europe also to support this kind of initiatives, because now we have the technology, we have to change some regulations, but I think that all the ecosystem is ready for this.
Okay, good.
So rounding up a little bit, what would be your key message? Because I think it's also a lot to do with the governments and the EU, if I understand correctly. Yeah, there are funds, there is some support, but at the same time with rules and regulations, we're struggling to kind of move certain things forward. So yeah, if each of you can have a message, what would that then be? Who wants to start? You?
I should say that all the technology parties must collaborate for a solution, that the government and authorities must make the rules of engagement, or how would you say it, that they can work on together.
Yeah.
Because we all need a solution. Yeah.
Absolutely. You want to add anything to that?
I think I'm a big avid founder of the European constellation, both on legislation, but also leading the way on technology. I think 6G and being a European leader in that helps to put that into practice. So that will be my key message. So Europe, take the lead
more
forward.
on 6G. Yeah. You, Nick?
So at the moment, we're all talking about direct-to-device at one end, and then building data centers in the sky at the other end. So although I'm representing space, I think we need to be a little bit more grounded, let's say, at the moment, because it's the application that counts.
Yeah.
We can get carried away a little bit, but innovation in space is significant. Let's not stop that, but let's make sure we understand that what it really matters is the application performing, because that's a mission, that's someone performing a work task, or it's someone, at the end, it's a machine as part of a production line. It's an instance that needs to be always on in this digital transformation age. So my ask would be, let's not forget the application.
Okay. And you, Pedro, last comment?
We're in 2025. We have the connectivity, we have the technology. We have to harmonize the regulations, and it's time to act. Europe has to say something, and it's time to act, because in terms of environmental sustainability and impact in the society, now we are losing the time, so it's time to act.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think we have come to the end of this session, so thank everybody also in the audience. And then, we have a lovely drawing. I think this is going to be published, right, Joe?
This kind of services are provided also for NTT DATA.
Yes, absolutely.
If I don't say that, someone kill me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.